So what chapter stayed with you since you've read it? So first tell me how long ago you read it, and then which one has kind of stuck with you, a lesson or whatnot.
I finished.
Eric,
I'm so sorry.
I was just going to switch to Eric. Is that okay, Todd?
You go, Eric.
Okay.
When did it come out? I read it pretty much right after it came out.
October.
So a while ago. Yeah. So I had to scan back through it before hopping on here to remember everything. But, some of the things that really, it's kind of almost the same answer of like the frameworks. Like I learned a lot, I feel like, in the things about medicine and food was just really interesting to understand like how we've strayed from very natural ways of, treating our bodies with both food and medicine. So that's probably a general topic that stuck with me. But again, I just think like the idea of trade-offs and like how they looked at all of these different things and saw, we're getting this thing from modernity. What is the trade-off in our ancestry that we're giving up? Or like, what is the thing that we're giving up? And that's not something I ever really thought about in my day-to-day life. And now if I find something that, seems to be taking the place of something I used to do, I find myself asking myself, okay, what trade-off, what am I giving up for this? And so, there wasn't like a specific chapter or fun fact that stuck with me. It was more so this way of looking at the world of like, okay, you're doing this thing, but what aren't you doing because of it? Kind of like a cost-benefit analysis way of looking at my day-to-day.
Have you changed a behavior based on your new knowledge about food and medicine?
Yeah, about food and medicine specifically. I think that that's hard to say. I don't know if there's been a true behavior change. It's hard to say without like having tracked that specifically from before, but I definitely know now that I tend to think about this book and to think about the trade-offs, especially whenever I'm not eating things that I've cooked, like whenever I don't cook or I eat a pre-prepared meal or go out to eat. This is definitely now something I'm thinking about. And like, eating alone is another spot where I'm like, oh, what, I'm actually giving something up by deciding to eat this meal alone or to watch TV with my girlfriend and eat this meal. Like there's a trade-off there that's occurring. So I think there is, if I were to be honest and correct, it's probably a change in awareness that might have changed behavior, but I'm not, didn't come prepared for that one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hang you on that. I mean, a lot of times the first step is just becoming aware that there might be another way, another path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And I guess sorry to cut you off, Todd, if you were about to say something. But yeah, one thing that Lauren, my partner, and I now do is like make a point to have one meal together at the dinner table with no TV on. Before it was a lot of just sitting on the couch, eating what's on TV. Now it's like, okay, let's make it a point to have at least a meal together, go on a walk together, like make that time for each other without any external distractions or technology interfering with that.
And knowing that there's a reason that's healthy. It's one thing to have, the finger waggers that go, well, you should spend more time without the TV on and spend more time doing this with your spouse and blah, 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 and having a couple of scientists tell you why that's better for you. And there's a background reason for it, And I think just piggybacking what you're saying about eating, one thing I did notice that has changed my viewpoint about, fast food is if I have a choice between like Taco Bell and the local, Mexican place that, at least is making an attempt to get, fresh food and it's, made at least somewhat fresher than, one of these big, places like Taco Bell. It's like, even though it's going to take a little longer, I'll go to the, mom and pop place because it's got to be better for you. And I guess that's all common sense, but seeing it written down and seeing why that's better for you, I think that's made a little bit of a shift in my behavior.
That's awesome. And I thought of something as you were speaking, Todd, because that reminded me of something that I do now in cooking is like I actively smell my ingredients now. Like am smelling spices and trying to just get my senses more familiar with the things I'm cooking with, whereas before it might have just been chop, 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 pushed to the side. So I think that's because of this too, just a different way of looking at, things I'm putting in my body.
Getting more aware.
That's great. Todd, what piece or lesson stayed with you since reading? And when did you read it?
I read it, probably finished reading it a couple weeks ago. And then I think last week I went back and just bullet pointed a couple things just to reinforce it. But I think what's sticking with me, and it's kind of an enigma, is the last chapter about the final frontier. Isn't that what they call it?
Fourth.
The fourth frontier, yeah.
Yeah, that's Star Trek.
Yeah. That too.
Which I
That
love.
Too. Because it's just kind of fascinating to try and figure out, because humans need to explore and we need to grow, and finding a way to satisfy that need without destroying the planet and without destroying each other is a fascinating idea. I'd like to say that I've come up with some ideas on how to make that happen, but I haven't. But the concept itself is something I've never heard before. And it's so true. It's like, you see progress all around you. And, there's a part of me that hates when I see another apartment complex going up, and then another complex, and then another restaurant going up, and and realizing that that's like a human need, that we need to grow, we need to progress. And the sooner we can figure out a way of satisfying that need without doing all the other things, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've always been push for growth, economic growth, raise the economic base of the community so we can all benefit. Of course, that comes in the form of taxes, but it can also come in the form of rent or labor and things like that. And so I've been very involved in that world for about, over 20 years. Now I see the shadow side of that, though, which is there is an equilibrium that must be struck. And there is a tax, a nature tax, an earth tax to pay. Today, our son told me that he had learned that 5% of the, I want to say the plastics in the ocean come from America. And I said, really? I thought we were responsible for more. And he said, no. Unfortunately, the poorer countries have a hard time because they don't have sanitation systems like we do. And I didn't realize it was so low. And I said, well, that means what? And he's like, well, if we're going to fix trash and plastic and water, we're going to have to do it globally. So he said there was some ship that sucked it up and kind of processed it and told me all about this ship that they have that goes through the water. Yeah. So
that's encouraging.
Yeah. But we have to think of these bigger things. It can't just be America. It can't just be our community all the time. Of course, if you clean up your community, that certainly is helpful. But